This is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got the Glock 27 Gen 4 chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson. This is one of the baby Glocks. Their Glock subcompact line really aimed at concealed carry. And up until the release of the 42 and 43, it was the smallest Glocks available. These two guns, the 26 and the 27, are dimensionally identical. They're 6.41 inches long, 4.17 inches tall, and 1.18 inches thick at the slide. And they weigh about 19 3/4 ounces. The 40 and the 9 share the same frame and all the other hardware. The only difference is obviously the barrel and the chambering and the magazines. So let me talk about a few of the features of this gun and go through it. So we'll start out with that it is unloaded. This gun does have a short magazine, carries 9+1 in its stock configuration. And what you get with the magazine installed is basically a 2-finger grip. Now you'll notice that this particular one does have a Crimson Trace laser guard installed on it, and it's designed that when you get a shooting grip on it, the laser automatically comes on, and when you let go, it goes off. So there's no extra switches to flick or anything else. Without this, you have the standard Glock squarish trigger guard. There are no external safeties like all the other Glocks. The safeties are the split trigger, which is part of the drop safety mechanism, as well as the internal striker block. But the design of the Glock is if you don't pull the trigger, no matter what you do to it, it's not going to fire. If you do pull the trigger, it's going to fire every time. The gun has the standard Glock U-dot sights, which are very clear, very easy to see, very easy to pick up. However, if you don't like that style, they are dovetailed. The rear side is dovetailed and the front is pinned. There's a little bolt underneath when you take the slide off that you can access. And there's a whole host of aftermarket sights available for them, so the sights are easy to change out. A few of the features of the Gen 4 is the dual recoil spring, the interchangeable backstrap system, and this one has no backstrap added, which makes it equivalent to the Gen 3 short frame variant. And then there's two other backstraps you can put on here to make the back a little bit larger, which would make it equivalent to a standard frame and then a larger frame. The magazine release is reversible, so you flip it over from this side to this side. Now, one note on that, if you choose to use the reversible characteristic, you have to use a Gen 4 magazine, which has an extra cutout on the side of it. You'll see there's two cutouts, one here, and then on the other side you'll see the second cutout. If you look at a Gen 3 or earlier magazine, this side will be flat. There's no cutout on it. If you leave it in the right-handed configuration, it's compatible with all of the prior magazines, but if you choose to reverse the magazine release, you'll have to use Gen 4 mags only. And one other thing to note about this gun, like all the Glocks, it can use the magazines of its bigger brother. So you could take this 15-round magazine. Looks a little bit crazy, but it works. Or you can use the equivalent of the 40 caliber version of the Fun Stick, and it'll work perfectly well with these magazines, just like with the original magazines. Now, unfortunately, I haven't seen drums or some of the other really fun stuff for the 40. Disassembly of this gun is relatively easy. First thing you do is confirm that it's clear. Then you do have to pull the trigger, point it in a safe direction and pull the trigger, and that releases the sear. And then the easiest way to do this is just grab the gun with your thumb under here, wrap your fingers around it, and just squeeze a little bit. All you're doing is taking tension off of a little plate here. You pull down on these two little knurled tabs, and the slide comes right off. I'll set the slide aside for a moment and we'll look at the frame. Internally, the frame is very robust, but also very minimalist. There's nothing in here that is absolutely needed to make it work. You've got slide guides at the front that are steel, a steel locking block, very robust, solid locking block. At the back, you've got two more guides, the trigger and sear mechanism, and this little protrusion here operates the striker block, part of the drop safety mechanism as you pull the trigger. So all of the safety features are automated. As you pull the trigger, the safeties sequentially disengage, the gun fires, and when you release the trigger, they re-engage. The slide is as simplistic as the frame. You've got the dual recoil spring that is captive. The barrel. It's a nice robust solid block, same as all the other barrels. And it does have, in the newer ones, it does have full support of the chamber. Some of the older ones, there was the the Glock bulge, where they didn't fully support it, and especially in 40, the case would have a tendency to blow out. You have your striker block here, sear mechanism, and a very smooth, well-machined internals to the frame. Overall, it's very smooth, well done, but no extra decoration. It's basically a very high-performing utility gun. It doesn't have anything extra and fancy, but it does. Everything that it has is well done. Reassembly is pretty straightforward. There's a little half-moon cutout at the front of the barrel block that this slides into, and when you pop it in with your hand, it just pops in and then it sits right in there. You can give it a push if you need to make sure, but it tends to want to guide itself in. And the other thing I'll mention is the guide rod on this is plastic, though the springs are really robust steel, and there's an inner frame between the inner and the outer spring assembly that is steel as well. But keeping in mind that the guide rod's real function is to keep the spring going straight, it doesn't actually take the strain of the cycling itself. So I'll put the slide back on, which is fairly easy to do. All you do is line it back up with the guide, pull it back, lock it in place, function check, and you're good to go. Very easy to disassemble and reassemble. And while we're at function check, let's talk about the trigger for a second. The Glock has, from the factory, about a 5.5 pound trigger. On this gun, I've done two things to it. I've put in the minus connector, which takes about roughly a pound off. It used to be called the 3.5 pound connector, but that was creating confusion, so they call it the minus connector. So it puts the trigger in the 4.5 pound territory. And I've done the 25-cent trigger job, which is basically polishing the interfacing components of the trigger assembly to make it a little bit smoother. It doesn't really take any weight off it, it makes it a little bit smoother. The same type of smoothness you get with, a couple thousand rounds down range, you get instantaneously. But let me show you how the trigger works. So we'll start out with the trigger in the ready position. Once you have your finger on the trigger, that's about the take-up, so maybe about a 1/4 inch or so of take-up. And then a good solid wall, you're on the wall. Then a nice crisp break. And it's a very solid and crisp break. Relatively short reset. There are some I've seen that are shorter, but this is a nice, well thought out, perfect reset. And then you're right on the wall, and another crisp break. So it's very easy to get really clean follow-up shots and also control the gun and avoid having unexpected double taps. So overall, if you're looking for a concealed carry piece, you can get this if you want the power of the 40, get 9+1 capacity. You can also get the exact same frame, footprint, and everything else in a 9mm and with 10+1 capacity. So the trade-off there is 1 round of capacity. Other than that, they're functionally identical. You could even have both and have no issues as you transition between the two with different modes of operation. So hang on for more range footage. If you like our videos, give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and have a great day.
Gotta look as a take precaution.
Oh no, that's fine. He was, I guess, close to the.
Yeah, got a hit. The problem was he came out and he handed me his